Reason is Andrew refuses to take the archaic GOP pledge, which is a 1970s era Republican promise to not talk about how our property tax base crushes seniors, the poor, the working class families, and it's prevented countless New Hampshire leaders from unlocking our state's full potential. So Andrew's made it clear, and he's created his own pledge for the future, which is to lower property taxes for the majority of Granite Staters. So yes to that. He's also the only candidate in this race who opposes fracked gas, right? A granite bridge pipeline, and supports the Green New Deal and creates stable, clean energy jobs and leaves the dangers of the fossil fuel industry in the past. And so that's huge that he also does not take money from corporate PACs, by the way, which all the other candidates, both Republican and Democrats, are doing that. So that's saying a lot. Also, Andrew is the only candidate who refuses, oops, that's the next line, refuses corporate PAC and fossil fuel money from the very beginning, not because he's running for governor. This has been his stand. A staggering 60% of Sununu's campaign donations come from corporations and LLCs, which tells you everything you need to know about Sununu. But also, I mean, it's just not only about Sununu, but also his opponent is also taking money. So just putting it out there. And we know that they take money, his opponents, from Liberty Utilities, which backs the pipeline. So let's keep that in mind. So we all know Sununu checks all the right boxes, but more than that, he is exactly what New Hampshire needs and what we're going to get, God willing. And so I am honored to introduce the next governor of New Hampshire, Andru Volinsky. And so Andrew is gonna say a few words now. Andrew, take it away.
Thank you. That was a sweet introduction. I hope I can live up to it, everyone. I am so proud of the Rights and Democracy endorsement. It means a great deal to me. I've been honored before by Rights and Democracy. So I pinned up to my wall the 2018 State House Movement Leader Award that I received towards the end of my first term on the Executive Council. I went there on a mission to shake things up, and I think I've changed the way people think about the Executive Council. I intend to do the same thing as governor, and I hope that you're there with me every step of the way. So let me just talk for a few minutes, and then I know we're going to have a moderated conversation and some questions, and we'll go wherever you want. So look, we're in the midst of a crisis. It's COVID, it's economic, it's healthcare, it's climate change, it's racial justice. Now more than ever is the time for bold ideas and courageous leadership. And now, while COVID makes so obvious the holes in our social safety net, now is the time to break the tie of the failed Republican rhetoric of the 70s that Esma mentioned. It is holding New Hampshire back and disadvantaging all of the people we care about. Now's the time to break that. Most of you know I was the Claremont school funding lawyer. So let me tell you why. And it happened when I first was invited to Claremont. It felt like going home for me. I grew up in a mill town in Pennsylvania where the mill failed. My dad was a maintenance man and a mechanic and a union shop steward. My mother was a homemaker. I'm the only one in my family to have gone to college. I paid for law school by working as a carpenter. I understand the difference that educational opportunity can make because it made the difference for me. It's a question of economic justice. And in many parts of the state, it's a question of racial justice. The two lowest spending school districts in New Hampshire are the most diverse school districts, Manchester and Nashua. They both have free and reduced lunch percentages well over 50%. And they are diverse both in color and in culture and in ethnicity and in economic terms. And yet Manchester spends thousands less than the average. Nashua is not much better. There was a report by some consultants for the state this week that found that Manchester spends about $10,000 too little per student, given the high needs that Manchester schools see each and every year. You can't make that up with little incremental false statements about the most progressive budget, which is what my Democratic opponent does. We need bold structural change. And that's what I've been talking about for 30 years. And if we had political leadership that had stepped up during that time, I would probably be sitting on your side of the camera instead of this side of the camera. But it hasn't happened. And now is the time where it has to happen. So education, number one, making taxes fair in New Hampshire. Taxes are part of the social contract. We need to invest in our state. And in order for that to happen, everyone needs to pay their fair share. Not twice, not 3 times, not 4 times your fair share, but just pay what you're supposed to pay and have everyone else do the same thing. So those are my first 2 issues. Combating climate change is also one of the motivations I have for running. Some of you know that I'm a new grandfather for the 2nd time. Amy and I have a 13-week-old grandson who I have never held. It really bothers me to say that. Amy and our daughter Molly, about a month ago, rented a van and drove to Denver to be with our son's family and the baby. Slept in the van a couple of nights on the way. We're self-contained. But I confess, I view climate and the environment through the eyes of a grandfather. And I worry about the future we're leaving our children and our children's children. For me, it's a no-brainer to say that the time for half measures is gone. There's no excuse for one more fracked gas pipeline. I was adamant in my opposition to Granite Bridge. I was a lawyer in the Supreme Court against Northern Pass. I got the same briefing as Sununu and Feltus did on Granite Bridge. I left with grave concerns and many questions. They left with checks, and their campaign contributions have continued. It's a very different approach. As a matter of fact, there's a video circulating of me tearing up a $500 campaign check from a Fortune 100 corporate PAC. I didn't ask for the money. I don't know anyone at the company. They sent me the check. I didn't know why. And then 2 weeks later, a contract for that company came before me as an executive counselor. They were probably the right company to do the job, but we've all become so cynical, they thought they needed to pay me to do the right thing. So on camera, I tore up that check. It's on our website. Let me tell you, it's a little hard for a politician to tear up a $500 check, but it was the right thing to do. And so we've had a very different approach than Dan and Sununu on raising money. We have more than 12,000 contributors now to our campaign. We've smashed the records, doubled the records for most gubernatorial campaigns in the entire cycle, primary and general combined. And we've done it in just the primary. That means we need lots of contributions from modest donors. And so we're still trying to raise money. We're up on TV tomorrow. We were able to make a fairly modest ad buy with a commercial for our campaign. Feltus has put in 3 times as much money as we currently have. We need to close that gap. And so anything anyone can do to help, go to VolinskyNH.com. We have a car rally tomorrow that I want to mention in Manchester, 11 o'clock. It's at 670 North Commercial Street. There'll be some music. There will be a surprise announcement, and we'll all be socially distant and either wearing a mask or in our vehicles. We did one of these in Lebanon last weekend. It worked out really well to celebrate the defeat of their pipeline. On Tuesday, we've got Abdul El Sayed, joining me for a conversation and a fundraiser, 6 p.m. Irene can give us the details of that event. It is a fundraiser, and we're auctioning off a pint of the Ben & Jerry's new ice cream named for me. It's called Volinsky's Courageous Crunch. Yeah, that's why they're doing it. And so Amy used their recipe, and it's vanilla ice cream with cinnamon hearts. And because it's based on campaign finance, it has busted up $1 million chocolate bars in it. It's perfect. So we'll have some of that on hand as well. So I would love your help in any way you're able to help. And please, let's go have this conversation and take off in whatever direction your questions take us. So thank you again for having me, and thank you for your wonderful endorsement. It means a great, great deal to me.
Thank you, Andrew. Asma, it looks like you have to unmute yourself. I was trying to unmute you there. So.
All right, yes, okay. All right, so I guess I'm going to introduce Ivor Edmonds. So Ivor Edmonds is the, am I right, Isaac?
Yep.
Cool. Ivor Edmonds is the Chief Wellness Officer for SAGA, where he teaches yoga, meditations, Pilates, Qigong, I hope I pronounced that right, Reiki, and more. He has 20 years, I'm sorry, I've aged you. He has 20 years of experience working with gangs and troubled youth, homeless populations, victims of violent crime, survivors of trauma and rape, and mentally ill, and senior centers. So, Ivor?
Hello? Can everyone hear me? Okay. Hello, my name is Ivor from sagamonadnock.com. We're a group of trauma-informed wellness healers. I'm also the East Coast representative of T4T Saves Lives. We do community-led police accountability training, and we're finishing the next edition of Community Conscious Policing is coming out very soon. So I have a question for you, Andrew, and I prepared it here. How do you plan to integrate the voices of survivors of police brutality, Black men like me who were almost killed by the police and live closest to the pain, at the architect's table of police accountability reform in New Hampshire? How do you plan to hear our voices and let our ideas and experience guide the design of the process, policies, procedures, practices, and evaluation of police accountability in New Hampshire?
So first, thank you for the hard work you're doing. I'd say we're both benefited and held back by our personal experiences. And so in some ways, my personal experience is relevant and is a benefit, and I'll tell you what that is. But I'm not a Black person or a brown person, and my experience is different. And so I need to be talking to Black and brown people to get the benefit of their experience. So here's what I do bring to the table. One is my daughter Molly is a clinical social worker. She just finished 5 years as a high school social worker at A. Philip Randolph High School in New York City, inner city, tough neighborhood. She was one of a handful of social workers for a huge high school. And I've learned from Molly's experience, who one of her first responsibilities was to run a group for high school kids who had lost a parent to gang violence. We've had really long discussions about that. On my side of the equation, I was a public defender in Tennessee and in New Hampshire. I've done death penalty work throughout the South, often standing in the courtroom next to the one person that it's fair to say everyone else hated, and confronting the police over and over again in those contexts. After I left the public defender office, because I had so much experience dealing with police departments, I wound up taking a number of police misconduct cases. So I tried cases where police used excessive force. I tried cases where the police used profiling um, to pick on people of color who came through Manchester for whatever reason. Um, I represented the family of a Hudson man who was killed in a drug raid that was just horribly planned and terribly executed. I'm probably the only person running for governor now or ever who's been through SWAT school. That case involved a failed SWAT effort. I figured out that the expert the other side was going to hire was teaching a SWAT program. And so I went to the program. It gave me a really deep understanding of how they think, which is important to understand how to deal with a lot of the police mentality. As an executive counselor, through a quirk in some legislation, the governor nominates members of the Manchester and Nashua police commissions, and then the council has to confirm them. So there's a pending nomination of a commissioner from Nashua. And so what I did is I reached out to the head of the Nashua NAACP, Gloria Timmons, and asked for her opinion about this commissioner nominee's conduct in his prior term. I did the same with two of the leaders of Black Lives Matters. I hope their responses will inform me on how to approach this guy's nomination. I don't have all the answers. And so I intend to include people who have different experiences than me and to rely on them to inform me. But there are things that I know we need to do. First, we need to admit that systemic racism exists in New Hampshire. Sununu's dead wrong on that. It happens in the criminal justice system, happens in healthcare, it happens in economic terms. It is there in front of us if we only open our eyes to see. So when I think about police and law enforcement, we need to demilitarize and diversify the police departments in our state. We're fortunate in that we have a single police academy that all the police officers go through, so we can impact training at one point of contact, include implicit bias training, up the mediation training, up the conflict de-escalation training. We can make the disciplinary records of rogue officers public. That's something that Gordon MacDonald has refused to do. My Attorney General won't hesitate to make those records public. Those are the records I used to go after when I was doing a criminal case and there was an officer involved as a witness in the case. So I would do those things. I know that it's a little bit beyond your question, but I also spent 6 years on the board of directors of the Manchester Community Health Center. Those centers require that the majority of their boards are made up of clients. And so I served with a bunch of new Americans and learned a great deal from that experience. And it informs how I think about healthcare. So the past isn't always prologue, but in my case, some of my experience does inform me on what I know, and more importantly, on what I don't know and how best to reach out to people.
Thank you. I want to thank Ivor for your story and your question, and thank you, Andrew, for making it clear that you will center those most impacted by policing. And also, personally, I can't wait to live in a world where we're not relying on the security apparatus and the police to solve our society's problems. Next, I'd like to introduce our next person that's going to ask our next question. Deb Rainey. Deb Rainey has lived in New Hampshire since 1983. She is a resident of Harrisville and has been a public school music teacher in Monadnock region for 26 years. Deb?
And Deb, you gotta
Okay.
unmute your, there you go, perfect.
I was trying to, but it wouldn't let me. Okay. Hi, Andrew. Congratulations on your new grandson. I also have a new one that I have not been able to meet, so I feel for you.
Yeah.
Yeah. I and many of my fellow teachers are facing the start of the school year with great anxiety in the era of COVID-19. I'm approaching 65 and I have a history of respiratory illness. My district has chosen to reopen with the full student body attending 4 days a week and remote classes on Wednesdays with the building closed for cleaning. Masks are being required for students only when social distancing is not possible. And there is a vocal contingent of anti-maskers who believe that the coronavirus crisis is at best overblown, if not a hoax. I do not feel safe. Districts around me and across the state are each coming up with their own plans for starting the school year, and there is quite a variety in approaches. I'm seeing news reports about sharp increases in child infection rates and schools opening around the country and having to close immediately due to infection. How would you as governor lead New Hampshire in handling this pandemic, especially in terms of our schools?
Wow. It's one of the hardest dilemmas that we need to deal with. I recognize that there are people who need to get to work and want safe places for their children, but you're not a daycare center. You're an education facility, and we should keep the two concepts separate and apart. I wrote an op-ed maybe 3 weeks ago and outlined how I would approach school opening. I think I think events have overtaken what I was originally willing to do. So I thought that if we staggered attendance, staggered use of buses, we could lower density on the buses and in classrooms every other day, maybe attend or afternoon and morning sessions to reduce density, teach outside wherever possible. But it's clear to me that Sununu and Blue have made such a hash of school opening. They've not shown poor leadership. They've abdicated any leadership. And that's why you've got this crazy quilt of different approaches. And you have some school boards that bow to political pressure and some who stand by public health data and public health science. And it's a mix all across the state. So I'm not saying there's one size that fits all, but since writing my editorial, I really am leaning towards the idea that we should not reopen in person, that we need to stay remote, that there may be some smaller groups of children, maybe the children who have IEPs who can come in very spread out, very limited circumstances to get one-on-one sessions, to get small group sessions. There may be small groups of upper level students who need access to laboratory equipment, for example, but they're old enough so that you can trust them to wear a mask and keep a mask on. Same may be true with the CTE centers, the kids who are doing automotive classes or carpentry classes. Again, they're old enough so that they can comply with a directive to wear a mask, but they need some hands-on experience, and we should accommodate those. So I'm more inclined every day. The other thing I'll mention is this is a resource problem. You know, when you talk about lowering density, you're talking about increasing personnel. And most schools don't have the budget for that. And most schools haven't negotiated new contracts that accomplish that. And we should have been doing that at the beginning of the summer, not the end of the summer. Most schools don't have the ability to do the engineering evaluation of their air handling systems. There's an engineering standard. It's 2.5 times an hour that your air should turn over in your classroom. Which schools meet it? We have 488 school buildings in New Hampshire. Many of them are 50 and 60 years old. Many of them have deferred maintenance on their air handling systems forever, and we don't know what shape they're in. I would never put a child or a teacher or another staff member in a classroom without knowing the answer to that. But there are classes that are happening now. To the extent your school is opening and you have legitimate concerns because you're immunosuppressed or you're older, you should be able to stay out and teach remotely, period, end of sentence. Yesterday, the day before, the week before, Sununu should have issued an emergency order that creates a workers' comp presumption that if you work in a school and you come down with COVID, it is presumed to come from your work. It's the same thing that firefighters have, so that you're not sick and fighting to prove that you got COVID from work instead of the grocery store. And you're entitled to workers' comp benefits, and God forbid your family's entitled to death benefits if something goes terribly wrong. That should have happened already, and that's something totally within Sununu's power. Sununu also still controls some CARES Act relief money, and that should be distributed to schools that are opening so that we have the kind of resources that we need. So I hope that answers your question. It's really complicated. It's a mess.
Thank you, Deb. And again, thank you, Andrew, for answering that with delicacy and like really holding the concern that not only Deb, but many of us hold. Thank you. Our next questioner is going to be Amy Hathaway, and Amy is on our board and was one of the founding members of our Monadnock Rights and Democracy. And she was a former kindergarten teacher once upon a time. She's lived in New Hampshire since 1980 and is a pediatric occupational therapist in early intervention services. Amy?
Hi, Andrew.
Hey, Amy.
I'm super excited about the Green New Deal. And I know that in New Hampshire and regionally, Rights and Democracy and lots of other progressive groups and unions are united around a big effort called Renew New England to link economic and climate justice together by passing a jobs guarantee and huge investments in renewable energy. How would you, as governor, bring together racial justice and workers' rights to help us win a Green New Deal for New Hampshire?
So we need to transition our economy to a green economy. We need not to do that solely on the backs of working people. We're all in this together. We need to make arrangements so that their incomes are protected and so that they can transition from jobs like working on fracked gas pipelines to applying those skills to offshore wind, for example, and the construction of the kind of turbines and related equipment that you need to do offshore wind. At the same time, the unions need to cooperate in the effort. I have a really strong relationship with labor. I've fought for labor for years and years. I represented all of the state's public unions in an effort to protect their pensions. But every trade union in our state has endorsed Dan because he approved of the fracked gas pipeline and approved of the Northern Pass transmission line. They saw it as a job effort. I saw it as a false promise. Even if they were built, they would have crashed our economy because of the damage they do to climate and the environment. So any gains would have been short-lived. And I knew that they were both economically impossible to pull off. And the benefit, if it did work, would have gone to the Eversource and Liberty Utilities shareholders, not the working people. So we need to build an economy in which those folks share, we share. I think the best way to do it is in a regional Green New Deal. It's something where the three northern New England states can collaborate with one another in projects that are to the east with Maine, to the west with Vermont. Vermont's Vermont is so far ahead of New Hampshire on solar. New Hampshire gets 1% of its power from solar. Vermont gets 12%. New Hampshire once had a really vibrant machining industry in the western part of the state, Cheshire County, Sullivan County. We need to rebuild that industry in part so that we can be constructing and manufacturing our own solar panels. We need to be using landing areas in Portsmouth and along the small seacoast that we have to do offshore wind from there. Those are the kinds of projects that we can do. And of course, I think everyone on this Zoom knows that the first point of attack with energy conservation is conservation. So our buildings need to be insulated. The state needs to take the lead there with school buildings and with state buildings. We need to have an agency in charge of that. I've committed that within the first 30 days of my administration, I'm going to create the Agency for Climate, Energy, and the Environment. And its job is to build a citizen-informed plan to get us to carbon neutral by 2030. That's where I'm going. Not incremental because we don't have time.
Right. Thank you.
Mm-hmm. Thank you. Good to see you.
Yes, you too.
All right, let me get Frank unmuted here so we can. Oh, it looks like Frank, you might have to unmute yourself. I'm trying to do so, and I think you gotta take that. There we go.
So I'm a vegetable farmer in Cheshire County. Hi, Andrew. And Kim and I have been vegetable farming here for 18 years now. And obviously the environmental issue is really important, but for us, we're self-employed and we're low income farmers. So so I guess for me, the most important thing is healthcare. Like now we get our insurance through Medicaid, and our whole experience has been to shame and to make it really hard to keep your insurance. So I guess for me, that's the most important issue. So I guess I would ask, what is it that you're, how do you sit with that? And then I know that we're headed to some breakout groups, but I guess that would be my first question.
Okay. Thanks, Frank. Hi, Kim. So let's be clear. I'm a Medicare for all guy. That's mostly a federal issue, but as governor, I would lend my voice to a single payer system because that's the only way we're going to address this in a real sustainable way. So I start there. The way that you're treated in the Medicaid system is just plain wrong. We did expand Medicaid, but the idea that we would shame people for being in that system. Medicaid expansion happened when I was on that community health center board. So we were taking on a bunch of new clients, and we surveyed people. How do we accommodate you? And we wound up adding hours at night and on the weekends because everybody was working. Everybody was doing $8 an hour jobs in the expanded Medicaid population. So it's not like people are slackers. We need to give them opportunities to earn a fair wage, which is at least $15 an hour. In New Hampshire, it's probably higher than that. So I'm also a $15 an hour minimum wage person. But Medicaid can involve the shaming. It needs to be viewed as just another insurance policy and approach to paying for medical care. There are some things for people who are not Medicaid eligible that I think we should be doing. We need to break the tie between health insurance and employment because we're seeing during the COVID crisis, when people lose their job, they go on unemployment. And with the $600 extra benefit, that kind of helped for a while. But then they'd also lose their health insurance if they were out and couldn't afford to pay for COBRA, which is really expensive. So we need to break that tie. One of the ways we could do that as a state is New Hampshire has a number of what are called risk pools. They're self-insurance pools that the municipalities and school districts use. I think we can, with some legislative changes, open them up to people working in the gig economy, people self-employed, small business people like farmers to participate in, so that potentially we now have offered a building block to new businesses and to allow businesses to grow without having to stay employed at a former company. Our unemployed have gone from, or uninsured rather, have gone from about 75,000 to over 90,000 during this COVID crisis. And that's taking us obviously in the wrong direction. Let me make one other comment before I leave you. It doesn't relate directly to your question, but my wife, Amy, got a COVID test before she left to drive to Denver. And then a month later, we got a bill asking her to make a copay. When I know the convenient MD contract that Sununu gave to his buddy doesn't allow for copays. So if anyone gets a copay bill for a COVID test, don't you dare pay it, and call me and we'll deal with it.
Wow.
How are the horses?
The horses are great. Thank you.
Okay, good to see you guys. Neighbors, we need to turn out everyone we can in this election. We are going to be grossly outspent. And so this is the time. Do you want to make a change? And if so, you got to show up, because Dan is going to spend more money than you can ever imagine being spent on a state primary. And we need to be able to withstand and overcome that. So
I hear one of my favorite legislators right now, Ryan Buchanan, sharing some good ideas.
That voice anywhere.
I'm so sorry. I realized we're out of our big breakout groups, and that I would.
But anyone who has, something that stuck out for you, that you learned about someone else, that you found inspiring or that you found really interesting, I would love if people could post that in the chat. Like, what is something that you heard from someone else that you're taking away as a lesson or as a inspiration? And let's see what we get here in the chat. I would just love to kind of see some of those and hear what people have been learning. So, seeing some great stuff here. Ideas for ways to get the word out and to organize creatively. We need more signs all over the state. That's a big one I'm seeing. Andru Volinsky giving a shout out to Locally Sourced, great podcast that Carter Hammond does. Seeing like the need for us to really lift up the kind of stories of folks who are impacted by environmental issues that cause them health problems. Oh man, Irene says Tom Harris has knocked 6,000 doors. That's really amazing. I'm hoping that was like just lit drops. Probably.
I'm really, really excited to be joining you all because of the, I've experienced and had the opportunity, a pleasure and the honor to participate in some of the great works that the Rights of Democracy have done for the state of New Hampshire. And what I'm most excited about currently is getting
mobile.
the current governor out. Because I've seen, and I am, the work that I do, I see the social injustice, the inequities. One of the biggest passions I have is getting our state to recognize that the Medicare rates in New Hampshire, and don't quote me because it might be old data, but I know based on the program that I work in, that New Hampshire has been 33rd in their benefits for Medicare to their client, to the citizens in New Hampshire. And it's just a total disservice to our community. Definitely need to bring in change so that there is a much more equitable system for healthcare. And I'll finish with this because I work so closely with the fact that because our government in New Hampshire is always, I don't know, capitalizing on a balanced budget, there are so many citizens going without services just for that intent. And so that's what I'm here for. And yes, you're welcome.
Yeah. And yeah, some other awesome ideas in here. People posting creating your own Facebook video, recording a video of yourself or asking a friend or a family member or partner to record a video of you about why you support Andrew, pushing that out on social media. I saw a great idea from, I think, Gary Hoffman, like if it's your birthday, make it your cause to raise money for Andru Volinsky. That was awesome. Flyers and lit drops, yes, big time. Signs, big time. So loving these things. Gary just shared a great video in the chat. So also Irene just added her email in here. Irene's the campaign manager for Volinsky. And why don't I'm gonna just quick.
In for just a second. Yeah, can I just jump in just for a second? Just to
Yeah,
say
yeah.
a good idea that we had in our group is people asked if they can get a good group of people, can Rights and Democracy host an event where they're talking to their friends about Volinsky? And yes, we can absolutely do that. So if you can get a group of people together, we can help set that up for you through through a Zoom link. So I wanted to say that. But also one other thing that I think is really important, it's good, yes, we want to remove Sununu, but it's not enough to remove Sununu. Let's remember, out of all the three candidates, Volinsky actually reminded us in our group, he's the only one who will lower property taxes. So let's just keep that in mind. It's not enough to get Sununu out, but if we really want New Hampshire to move to where it needs to go, our schools, our healthcare system, et cetera, we actually need Volinsky. So just wanted to put that out.
Well, that's a perfect segue into me premiering this video for everybody. So I'm gonna go ahead and make this full screen, and then we'll come back. Irene is gonna speak for a minute, and then we'll have a closeout. So let me just go ahead and get this going.
When choosing a Democrat for governor, remember, only Andru Volinsky has directly taken on insurance companies and won. Only Andru won fair funding for New Hampshire schools. Only Andru has pledged to lower property taxes and stop fracked gas pipelines. Only Andru has what it takes to stand up to Donald Trump. Andru Volinsky, the only progressive for the job.
I'm Andru Volinsky. I'm running for governor, and I approve this message.
All right, everyone can take it off mute and just put the hands together. Yes, I love it. And I'm going to pass it to Irene. So let's see, how do I get out of share? Here we go. All right, and Irene, are you able to unmute yourself there? Let's see if I can do it for you. Nope, you got to do it yourself.
Yeah, okay.
There we go.
All right. Thank you, Isaac. Thank you, everyone, for holding on and staying till the end. I'm really thrilled with Rights and Democracy organizing this and all your people power. I mean, this is how we're going to overcome our 2-to-1, you know, cash on hand disadvantage with our opponent is because of you guys and all your hard work and passion. Rebecca, I love that sign. It's not a homemade sign. But there's a lot of opportunities to help us in this next 26 days. You know, the 2 events I think that Andy mentioned. We do have a car rally tomorrow in Manchester where we're going to have a really super special, exciting announcement that we dropped there for the first time. You know, we can't do in-person events really safely, so if people don't want to get out of their cars, hopefully this will be a way to do it, and hopefully we'll be able to even have a low FM radio so they don't even have to roll down their windows to be able to hear. So that's tomorrow at 11, and we're hoping to do a couple more rallies around town, hopefully in Nashua and maybe Concord as well. And then the 18th, which I think I shared the Facebook invite, is our kind of final last big fundraiser with Abdul El Sayed. I'm sure a lot of you know who he is. He ran for governor of Michigan on the same kind of progressive platform. Now he's a renowned epidemiologist, and so I think it'll be a great conversation about the intersection of the Green New Deal and COVID and public health and why we need it for our future. And Jerry Kern from the Sierra Club is also joining us for that discussion. It's only $25 to get a ticket, and if you put in 50, you might be able to win a Volinsky Courageous Crunch pint of ice cream for our raffle. So there's our very special limited edition Ben and Jerry recipe. And then some of the other things we're starting to do, we are going to start to do texting and phone banking. So I put in the info at VolinskyNH.com, but that's, if you want to volunteer, let me know and I will put you up with our field team. We're still writing postcards as well. So if anyone wants to write a postcard, they can do that, and we have postcard and yard sign hosts all around the state. So you just kind of have to let us know where you're at and we'll try and get those to you. So those are some of the really big things. Oh, the other thing that we absolutely love is letters to the editor. We're seeing some awesome letters, you know, pointing out differences in fracking, differences on the pledge, and education policy for Andy, and those are super valuable to us. So if you are interested in writing a letter to editor, again, get in touch with us and we can provide talking points and also how you can get it into the right newspapers. As well. We also, which I think I put in the chat, we're starting up with these rapid response teams. So if you're one of those people who love Twitter and insulting people on Twitter and sharing things on Facebook, we have groups for that, where like this ad today, like we shared it with our Twitter and Facebook group and we told everybody to share it. So if you'd like to be part of those groups, you know, you again just have to email us and we'll make sure that you are able to do it. So that's it from me, and you know, you guys have my email, so I love all the ideas, definitely love all the video ideas. We also have, by the way, an Instagram called @AndrewGang that has a TikTok memes and a fam cam of Andy that our youth have done. We are not affiliated with it. I told them to do whatever they wanted, but it's very cool youth engagement. I'll put it. I didn't know what a fam cam was until they did it. So, so feel free to follow that as well on Instagram. So let me know if there's any other questions and ideas for how folks can get involved.
Thank you, Irene. All right. So yeah, make sure you find her email in there, get in touch. There's so many ways y'all can help. And with that, I'll pass it over to Heather. I'm trying to find you here, Heather.
I'm here.
There we go. All right.
Hey y'all. Hey everyone, I'm Heather Stockwell and I'm the Monadnock region organizer for RAD and one of the founding members, along with Amy Hathaway and others on this call tonight, of the Monadnock Rights and Democracy chapter. So many thanks to Andru Volinsky and everyone for coming tonight. This has really been a special evening. It's just been really fun to see y'all on this call, and you know, so many of you are from this area, and then so many of you are from all over the state. It's really giving me a lot of hope about this campaign, that we can actually do this. So 4 or 5 years ago, before I'd found RAD, I had really lost hope in, well, a lot of things, and change really happening. And over the years, with what I've learned, you know, being a member of RAD and then now on staff at RAD, RAD's really engaged me in the fight to improve the lives of all people. And I remain engaged in that work because of RAD's commitment to uniting people and organizations to be a sustainable force on moving issues that we care about and holding elected officials accountable, as well as recruiting, training, and supporting like-minded candidates. And we have a lot of endorsed candidates on this call tonight. That's exciting. So I want to invite you to be a part of our work by becoming a dues-paying member of Rights and Democracy and encouraging your friends and neighbors to get involved and become members too. You can be a member at any amount, and it is gratefully accepted, whether it's $5 or $10 a month or anywhere beyond. Your donations will help us continue this work, and I look forward to working with all of you to ensure that our shared values will help create a society that is welcoming, respectful, and just for all. Thanks so much, everyone.
Yes, Heather, thank you. All right, y'all. Thanks everyone so much. I'm gonna put up a video of one of our other members, Jim Murphy, who's a musician and put together a great video. So we'll put that up as a send-off. I put in a link at the bottom there for people to become members of Rights and Democracy. Please do sign up for all the things Heather just said, better than I could. And I'll also throw a link in here for our phone banking. We're doing phone banks every Wednesday and every Friday. You can join us and help get out the vote. So sign up there. Become a member, join our phone banks, do all the things you can for Andrew. We got, 25 days basically. We got to get moving. So thank you, everyone. Thank you, Asma. Thank you to our members for speaking. Thanks everyone for joining. And I'm going to put this video up for us to get sent off.
No time to sit this one out. It's time to get on my feet. Rise up and move to the rhythm of my pounding heartbeat. Passions are fired up. I will not fade away. Thunder driving through me. So much to do and say. Wake up, shake up. Step up, step out. Stand up, stand out. Yes, I will. Yes, we can.
We haven't here before, this dark and winding road. Hold hands, help each other to carry this heavy load. Hard work ahead, we're ready to take on this fight. Straight ahead, hold steady, spread our wings and take flight.
Wake up, shake up. Step up, step out. Stand up, stand out. Shall we? Yes, I will. Yes, we can. No time to sit this one out. It's time to get on my feet. Rise up and move to the rhythm of my pounding heartbeat. Passions are fired up. I will not fade away. Thunder is driving through me. So much to do and